Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on January 7th, 2025 at approximately 8:57 p.m. PST. Now, I've made it my life journey to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Well, that worked well. Completely lost where I was. I got to figure out how to get around that. In any event, I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I guide virtually every movement by. Now, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success based on their own personal efforts. Now, before we get into things, again, today we're actually here and we're going to manage to pull this off. Today we're looking at the importance of a home for all. Okay, but before we get into it, hats off to Storm, who is our primary moderator in the background. He sits there to make absolutely certain we don't have problem children in here. Okay, so those people that try and come in, I don't understand how he does it. He can tell, it's kind of like Santa Claus. He knows if you've been good or bad. He knows when somebody comes in, whether they're coming in under an assumed name to cause a problem. And he just eliminates the problem. Okay, now I've already given him go ahead. If anybody wants to call him a bully, you're more than welcome to, but he's got full go ahead to actually evict you from the room. You'll still be able to hear. You just won't be able to interact. Now, we also have LA Moon in the house, who makes sure that things in the room are running smoothly, helps keep the conversation going, and thankfully keeps an eye on my health, so I don't go and drop dead on you while I'm talking to you. Although that would be entertaining. Just if that happens, sit there and bear with it for a few minutes. The odds are I'm going to get up again anyway. Now, we take a look at it, and we have Operation Shutdown. You are in with the goal today. How you doing? Yep, the journey continues today, and we're about to start pushing things to make it all happen. But all I'm doing is turning the lights on and going, okay, there's a chair in the hallway. You might want to get around it. Hey, did you notice that hole in the floor? So Operation You've Got Gold. Philip Blair, you are in with the silver. How's it going there, Philip? Glad you could join us. And we will see where this goes. We're already, here we are, 3 minutes into the show. We've already got more people in the room than we did when we were running at 4:30. And in case Joe Stewart pops in and listens, okay, I will be going on earlier in the day from time to time. Yeah, Ellie goes, I think he's more like Krampus. Well, that is possible. I didn't follow Krampus around too terribly much. What I do know is I am looking at making this year a very different year in a positive fashion. And the whole key to it is going to be showing you guys by example how that works. Now, when I set this topic in place, the importance of a home for all, I'm not talking about a house per se. Okay, now a house is a physical building. And I'll tell you, I've seen people with houses that's all they were. A home is a place where you can go in, relax. Yeah, LA goes, I think Krampus is fictional, but Storm certainly isn't. And I should get into that. At some point, I probably will. Okay, about the whole idea of Santa, Krampus, the whole 9 yards. We'll cover that down the road because I've got my own outlook on it. Okay, but I got my own outlook on a lot of things. But a home is a place where you surround yourself with the people of your choosing, which, by the way, is not always bloodline. Jeff Garvey, how are you? You are in with the bronze. And yes, Jeff Garvey is in a la casa, which I believe, if it's a la casa, that should be French, I suspect. Yeah, because it would be Essa or something to that effect or Spanish. But how you doing, Jeff? Glad you could join us. You know, the nice little part about it, when I take a look at this whole 9 yards, is I take a look at the office that you see here. Okay, I've cleared out a lot of the stuff. I've started working on that last shelf behind me here. The last, well, really 3 shelves. Everything else, aside from those, and inventory up on this bookshelf that you can't see, I'm just about done with my office and master bedroom. Okay, where it's now organized, I can walk in here and go, this is what I require. But this funny little thing is the backbone to it. Okay, this is what I use for the list method. Now, and I'll show you this. Of course, I decided I was going to figure things out. And instead of using little duotangs now, this here is the binder that holds all of the information from my list during the day, you know, from on a day-to-day basis. So since there's 365 days, what are we looking at? 183 pages by the time I get done this year. I may have to increase the size of the binder. I haven't figured it out yet. Oh, I will sort that. LA goes, you know, the best lie I tell myself is I will remember. You know, the funny thing there is this. Everybody's memory is absolutely eidetic. It's perfect. What we lack is recall. Okay. You know, that's where we run into troubles. And Philip goes, life is not a pony farm. German proverb. Well, it is the aftermath of a pony farm a lot of the time. In other words, a whole pile of pony droppings. But when we start looking at a home, first thing you got to do is make sure your place is comfortable. Now, my place is literally in this roughly 15 by 3. I spend 90% of my day, really. Well, I should say I spend about 60% of my waking day in a 15 by 2 by 4 foot cubicle. Okay, as in right here, the edge of the bed to the wall is about 4 feet. I got about 15 feet of desk, and it's all in this area I spend most of my day. Okay, needless to say, the rest of the time, I'm laying on the bed right behind me. But a home is really this one little detail we have to take a look at. Okay, once in order for your life to start changing. Now, you can do what you will. Do not take my word for it. Okay, if you've got clutter in your house, okay, the energy will not flow properly. You will not have the get up and go because unfortunately you'll throttle neck the energy. So, starting with wherever you work on your finances, start there. And let's get the stuff cleared out of the way. Guys, I got to get a better cup. This one is occupied by a young lass who keeps drinking my coffee. But it's absolutely imperative that you start looking at things and get the clutter removed from the area. If you do that, you will find energy levels climb, your sense of self improves, and overall your outlook on life will become a much brighter thing. The nice part about it is a home. It doesn't matter where you are. Bear in mind, you may live in a place that everybody gets along. I think they call that, now there's a fantasy for you. But, Ferret, how you doing? You came in with honorable mention. How you doing? Glad you could make it. There's been a lot of question around why move things. Why move the stream to this hour? Well, there were a couple of reasons for it. One of the biggest ones was to be able to function. Okay, so this is why we're only on for an hour, but I am planning on taking the time to show up periodically just to hang around on air. Stream will stay at 9 o'clock until 10 o'clock for as long as I can keep it running. Or more to the point, at this point, for as long as Storm and LA are available. But we had to make some adjustments for this year. One of the first things that I've got to tell you, that I've got to really press the issue on, is it's time to get rid of the clutter. Okay, I'm not going to go over that. I was going to go over there and show you what I did with the closet. I've even cleaned out my closet where I no longer have it just all packed together. It is now a question of take the clutter, dispose of it, or either dispose of it as in give it away, whatever. One of the biggest things I'm doing with some of the stuff that I've managed to collect, and it came from somebody on the stream here. Okay, I'm taking stuff. Philip, I take it you don't hang around in graveyards very often. I'm telling you, for a place that's supposed to be dead, they are some of the most active and oftentimes volatile little places. But I like the idea. But what I did find, I've cleared all that up, but what I'm doing with a lot of the stuff I don't require, okay, instead of just turning it over to Value Village now, which is a secondhand store up here, okay, or the auxiliary or whatever, I'm actually putting it aside to wrap it up and give it away to people for Christmas. Now, the so-called First Nations had a brilliant idea where they did this, and it was just standard practice. Have a potluck, bring a whole pile of gifts, never ask anybody what they desired. Just bring what you figured they required. Give them a gift. If they don't like it, they can pass it on to somebody else. The important thing with a home, I've talked to people, I've met people on the street that were absolutely at home there. One guy in particular, I used to have coffee with him all the time. Right, he lived on the street. And I'm sitting there with him having coffee at 6 o'clock in the morning. And he turns around. How you doing, Robert? Glad you could join us. We're sitting there having coffee, and somebody'd come by and dropped a pop can into his basket. He said, "Thank you very much." And as soon as the woman left, he looked at me and he goes, Keith, I really don't require the pop can. He says, but I do like smoking, and a pop can gets me $5. It gets me 5 cents at the place I go to get my cigarettes. So I say, it's just plain stupid not to take it. He says, understand, a nickel is a nickel is a nickel. Then he digs out his bank book. And he shows me his bank book. Why? I don't know. But he shows me his bank book. In his bank, he had $960,000. I looked at him and I said, with that kind of money, why are you living on the street? He goes, well, I'm at home here. He says, I'm comfortable on the street. I like sleeping outdoors. if the weather gets really bad, I can rent a hotel room for a day or for a week if I need to. But he says the bottom line is this: the government has enough money. They don't need mine. Robert goes, I'm recovering from lasers in the eye from the hospital, but doing okay. I gotta ask, Robert. Now, I understand you went through some bad things, some trying times. But why are they shooting you in the eye with a laser beam? Just because I'm nosy, in all fairness. But a home is where you are accepted as is. I am debatably one of the most off-kilter people. My own family figures I am. But the people I surround myself with, they simply take me as is. And that's how you know whether you're in a home. Well, no, whether you have a home. If you're in a home, there's another connotation. I will tell you, and like I said, books that I agree with, I can't give you the ISBN number for it. But where we take a look at the eyes, okay, back in 2007, if I was holding my glasses right there, like 8 inches from my face, I could not physically see my glasses. But I stumbled across a book called The Bates Method to Better Eyesight Without Glasses. It had such a massive impact with the tools that they offered that I now have essentially 20/20 eyesight for reading. Okay, I don't wear my glasses around the house except when I'm trying to read what's on the computer or when I'm driving. Now, needless to say, I don't drive around the house. Okay, but when we take a look at it, okay, now that book, The Bates Method to Better Eyesight Without Glasses, worked so well my eyes work. Okay, because I did what it showed. With that in mind, now I am not of the caliber of writing of some authors. This book, Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. Okay, this one I wrote. This is the backbone of how I took my life and turned it around to go from being absolutely almost perpetually depressed and completely non-productive. Okay, that's what this one's got. This works. Literally thousands of people utilizing the tools in this book has changed their lives. Then we have Believe in Your Business and Follow Your Dreams, and Believe in Your Finances and Follow Your Dreams. All of these are books that have the potential of changing your life if you decide to put the tools to use. And yes, we are working on PDF versions. In the hard copy version, complete with my signature, anywhere in the world right now, you can end up with it anywhere in the world that the post office gets to. We can have it in your hand, taxes in, for $20 Canadian. Okay, and absolutely, in that link at the top of the stream, the link that says buymeacoffee.com/innervoiceJ. It's a whole way of getting a hold of any of the books I've written, getting a hold of me directly. Okay, even for consultation. Okay, I've been doing this now. Well, I'm 61 now, so I've been doing it actually for 50 years. Okay, but these are methods that have been tested on, I kid you not, well over 100,000 personal clients of mine over the years. Okay, up to you how you deal with what you do with it. This is just one of those neat little options. Now, I see somebody came in and I missed them. Woo Rider, how you doing? Glad you could join us. But a home is a place where you can sit down, relax, be yourself. You don't have to watch what you're saying. on the whole. I mean, we watch out for each other, but it's where you can feel relaxed enough to relax and just be you. Okay. And rest assured that was be you, not P-U. Or P-O or F-U, or you can think of all sorts of other things. Let you fill in the blanks. Now, with this in mind, what happens here is I built my home. This, like I said, this 4x15, aka 60 square foot of home. Okay. It is now starting to expand into the rest of the house. And then I will start working outwards. Okay. In order to affect all of it. Now, I'm asking you guys to do the same thing. Rest assured, if you happen to be living in Australia, England, anywhere in the States, what goes on in your neighborhood realistically is not going to have a real big impact on me. Okay. Aside from the fact that I seem to be connected to the whole cotton picking planet. Now the neat part about it, let me just hit refresh, see what we're looking at here. Oh, look at that. See, now this is literally due to Storm's input. Between Storm and LA, we decided that moving us to 9 o'clock at night Pacific was a better option. Well, we're already at the high end of what we used to get at 4:30. Okay. The important factor here is whatever your life is doing right now, there is a way to turn things around. Philip, that's almost as bad as what I told somebody. And Philip goes, if you have a home theater, don't yell fire when it's crowded. Good thought. There's a lot of things I could get in a lot of trouble. So I don't even know, because some of the jokes I've told people to pull off were, well, shall we say, ill-advised in crowded areas. I remember one day I was in a high-class restaurant. And the waitress came up to me. And because there were 4 kids with us. I'd taken my son out to dinner at a high-class restaurant for his birthday. Right. And we had a little extra money at the time. And the waitress comes up and she looks at me and she goes, I've got to ask, sir, how did you get these kids to behave so wonderfully? I looked at her and I said, oh, that's easy. We used to have 5. I shot the first one. The other 3 and the other 4 have been behaving ever since. Well, she just walked away shaking her head. A little while later, one of the kids was acting up. And he said, and I told him, I said, I suggest you behave, or I'll take you back out to the car, put you in it, lock the doors, and I'll come back in and finish my meal. And the kid looks at me and goes, well, how's that going to help? I can unlock the door. I looked at him. I didn't see the waitress behind me. I looked at the kid and I said, that's what they invented trunks for. Absolute silence on his part. The poor waitress, she looks at me and she goes, sir, you have a unique approach to parenting. Right. So I'm like, well, it works. Rest assured, I don't actually treat kids that way. I do talk to them that way, but that's a whole different ballgame. A home is where you go to be able to sit down. If you don't, you're the only one dealing with it. Okay. If you're comfortable, that's the thing that matters. I will tell you though, if you go into your home and you leave the home, get to a real jumbled clutter, you're not going to sleep well, in all likelihood. Now, I know people will tell me, I've got junk all over the place. They go, I sleep fine. Short-term memory is shot. No energy. Grumpy as all get out. And I'm like, fine. Somehow I don't think that adds up for me. So, there is such a thing as getting used to it. Okay. And that applies to pack rats and hoarders the same. Now, the only difference I found between pack rats and hoarders is that hoarders have a tendency of hanging on to everything, garbage included. Okay. But I will tell you, start with your home. Get the clutter removed. Where do you start? Right wherever you're working on your finances. Absolutely imperative. Now, this neat little thing, this list method. Okay, the one self-help book I'm in the middle of working on is Believe in Your Organization and Follow Your Dreams. In that book, I go into a lot more detail on why this works. Bear in mind, you can get caught up with the list. Okay, it can get really extensive. But this is why it is recommended take 3 items. Make sure they are only 15 minutes to a half an hour in length. Okay. Get one completed. Write a third one at the bottom of the list. That method works. Okay. But the home issue is get the clutter out of the way. And now your energy levels will stay at a decent level. And that's about the point that you're ultimately looking at. And he goes, my daughter-in-law yelled at me in a loud voice at Walmart. Mommy, don't leave me. It's strange having the security follow you around. Having store security follow you around. I read something on Facebook today. He goes, my wife thinks it's strange me standing at the window during a rainstorm. Just staring through the window. He goes, I'm thinking it would be a lot less strange if she just opened the door and let me back in. What do we got here? Yeah. Philip goes, I don't hang on to garbage, but I'm surrounded by stacks of books I've bought at the thrift stores and yard sales over the years. My brother used to read, the one that recently, that a couple of years ago passed away, used to read a full-length novel a year, or a full-length novel a day, never threw any of them out, and remembered them word for word, page for page, until he died. Blue Cruz, how you doing? Glad you could join in, that you could join us. Boy, is my mouth working like an absolute stumble block today. I don't read that much. I write a whole lot more. But whatever makes you content. The one thing I will add that I will point out, though, there, Philip, is if you're surrounded by stacks, I used to live in what used to be classified as a warehouse. Stacks and boxes of stuff all over the place, but I knew where it all was. I do find, even with a library full of books, if they are organized in a way you can find them, you'll be a lot happier. Well, it was funny, and yeah, it was. Back in 1979, 1979, I organized his library of 6,000 books. Then once I got it all organized, he turns around and goes, pick a book out at a time. No, Ken, my older brother, did not write unless you can consider writing campaigns, because he was a D&D player. I actually gamed longer than he did. He started gaming about 2 years earlier, about 2 years before I started. But of course, I've lived 2 years longer, so we're sitting on the same side. But no, he told me to pull a book out at random, and I will never forget the day. I don't recall the exact page. That's not entirely correct. I do so. Don't recall what the letter was, what the words were. But I opened up a book by Piers Anthony, Centaur Isle. page 212. And I opened it up, and halfway down the right-hand page, I read a couple of lines. He identified the story and the page number. That's what everybody's memory can do. Everybody's memory does it. It's the recall we run into trouble with. But the more organized your home is, the happier you're going to be. The more energetic, the clearer your mind is going to be. And the better your recall will be. I know that sounds like such an incredible stretch. I'm telling you, don't take my word for it. If your home is not organized, start doing so. Now, I've seen people living on the street that are very comfortable. And I don't mean the people that are saying they're just kind of drooling all over things. I mean ones like this chap I knew, Paul. Okay. Very happy, very congenial, just didn't want to live indoors. Rest assured, I am not the one to tell you what your home should look like. Only that if your home is running effectively, there will be no ongoing conflict. People will accept each other as is. You'll still have your boundaries. The mistake some people make is going, well, I don't like the way this person does something, and they consider it controlling when I say it needs to be tightened up. That is not a requirement for a home. A home literally boils down to people accept each other as is. Operation. The answer to that operation is just asking, he goes, Keith, do you have any tips for improving memory? And the answer there, operation, is yes. Number one, bar none, number one tip that I found that works for me. And given the fact I've had a memory for like a sieve pretty much my whole life, okay, there are sometimes extenuating circumstances, but on the whole, start telling yourself your memory is improving. Okay, I used to have an absolutely pathetic memory for names, but I thought about it, and every time somebody asked me, go tell me their name, they'd go, they'd tell me their name, I'd say, look, if I forget it, I apologize, but it usually lasts about that long. Like, it usually goes before the echo dies. Right. As soon as I started telling myself my memory for names is improving, okay, it started to improve, and I'd totally forgotten about. I'm going to ask you a real loaded question here, Philip, and I only ask this because, well, I decided to. Philip's going, well, first of all, LA goes, I knew a guy, homeless, but his stuff was absolutely organized and tidy. That was his home. Okay. Philip goes, I like reading books that people have tried to ban. Sometimes I think, wow, this is really boring. If nobody had tried to ban this, I wonder if it would have gone out of print. Yeah, no doubt. But here's one for you. And this one they did try banning centuries back. You may recognize this. Some people call it the Bible. There are other names for it. But have you read this one? Because this is one of those books. No, I'm not saying, oh, you should read the Bible because it's all full of all this stuff. Tell you it's full of stuff, but you get to figure out what. I am Christian. There's no doubt there. And the only reason I'm actually reading this at all, and if you'll notice that little line there, I'm just over halfway through it. But the reason I'm reading this is because I told my dad on his deathbed I would read it cover to cover. And I'm coming along decently. I'm just over the halfway mark at this point. It's just a curiosity thing as to whether you've read it. Not whether you go to church, doesn't matter. Okay. I'm referring to reading. Now, I will tell you, in reading that book, I've seen spelling errors, I've seen repeated paragraphs. It's not perfect. Neither am I. And Carl, how we doing? Glad you could join us. And we have Carl, the legend, streamer. Hopefully your day's going well. You know, the thing with a home is this. It's where you go to relax. You know, when you walk through the door, you can let down your guard and say what comes to mind. Okay? It can get really dicey for people because I'll tell you, when emotions get raw, a home is where you've got to be able to let that happen, because I will tell you, I used to keep everything bottled. Here's the side effect. 6 years ago, I had a stroke because I bottled everything. Oh, there we go. Phil goes, I like the audiobook versions of the Bible, the one narrated by Johnny Cash and the one narrated by James Earl Jones. I didn't read either one of them. You know, I don't use audiobooks. Of course, I don't even own any audiobooks. Primarily because what I actually found with audiobooks is I don't tend to pay attention to them. This is why I usually have, like right now, I've got this stream on the go and that's it. Normally, I have my video going. I've got a video going. I've got a movie going. You know, music, a movie, and I got all kinds of other things on the go. My mind doesn't tend to slow down much. Okay, but in my home, in this 60 square foot area, okay, this is where I meet. This is where I do most of my writing. Okay, and I'm telling you, start with your local area. But a home is something that whether you live in a mansion or you live in a hovel or on the street, doesn't matter. You know, the number of people I've walked into their house, I've walked into millionaires' homes where I'm looking at it and everything is absolutely laid out. But they get so tense about a little bit of a cobweb here or there, right? Oh, that's got to be cleaned right away. To me, it's a bit of a problem. Okay, if you're that tense, then you're really not enjoying your life from what I've seen. And I can't tell you the number of millionaires that are that stressed out that end up with ulcers. I bottled everything, I got a stroke. There's an idea I don't suggest you try. But I am going to be dealing with certain aspects over the course of the next year. Like I said, I'm rebuilding my entire world. Okay, and you're welcome to join me. Absolutely. Oh, there you go. Phil goes, I like audiobooks while sleeping, along with soft instrumental music. This way you can enter books through dreams. Well, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea in my case. I usually wake up, if I have a dream, I usually wake up, if it's a nightmare, Lord knows what goes on. I wake up rested, best of all, with a body count. Not a great idea, but I will tell you. This is one of the novels I've written. Okay, that's The Birth of the Wolf Pack. Science fiction, science fantasy, depending on who you talk to. Okay, but this, like, depending on how you read, I find myself, if I don't get caught in the first couple of chapters, I'm not gonna work through it. So in chapter 1 in this, there's a fight laid out. Chapter 2, it's an absolute bloodbath. Okay, just to get the story moving. Now, the last 2 years have been a nightmare for writing. Matter of fact, they've been a nightmare for living. So it's time to get back to that. So the last couple of days here, the first few days of this year, I took this entire area, wiped everything clear on it, and put it back together. This way, life can carry on a whole lot. Yeah, Carl's going, and Carl Streiner is going. I have the New Testament given by a vicar at the local hospital last year, and the All Latter Days Book of Mormon. I've got the Book of Mormon somewhere around here, and I know it's on my list to read. I told my other half, because, well, she's Mormon, right? I'm reading this book, then I'll read theirs. But I will tell you that is strictly a curiosity thing. If anybody gets a brilliant idea, I'm all of a sudden going to start saying, hey, you got to do exactly what this says. I'll tell you, you're completely out of your mind. Okay. But, and yeah, I know somebody out there is going to take offense to it. Okay. People have tried converting me, tried telling me that, like, when I was living in a warehouse, people told me my house was an absolute dump. I looked at the guy and I said, you know where the front door is if you don't like it. You know, LA goes, when I was really small, our house had a plain wood floor, but had holes in the walls. Whoops. It had been a log cabin and the fill had fallen. Well, you know, very cold. My folks stuffed the cracks with hay. A real hovel. You know, the funny thing is, hovels may have their quirks, their problems. Okay, but the reality of it is, more often than not, the people in the hovel or in these rundown homes are happier. You know, they don't have all the technology, all the trinkets, all the baubles. You know, you look around the world, so-called third world countries, you see way more kids running around laughing and joking and goofing off, okay, and enjoying themselves. You can tell somebody's enjoying themselves in a home if you hear laughter coming out of it. Okay, now you could go the adult version of laughter when you're enjoying yourself. I'll let your guys' imagination do that. You know, do what it will with that. But I always find it better, okay, if I can walk by, more enjoyable if I walk by a house, by a door, because I live in an apartment, and hearing people laugh and joke and giggle is so much better than hearing things smash off the walls or fist to face. You get the idea. Yeah, I like that, Philip. Philip goes, I'll go to any church where the people are kind. Absolutely. Yeah, and then he goes, if people are mean, I just don't go back. You know, I was told by one chap, he would have invited me to his church if I'd been, ow, sorry about that. If I'd have been, you know, if I'd have been dressed better. You know, Woo Rider goes, I remember as a kid, where are we? Lost it. Oh, okay. That's why I lost it. Anyway, the reality is when you have a happy home where you're content. Oh, there we go. Oh, you have one of those too, eh? Will goes, I remember as a kid, we used to have to heat water on the stove just to have a warm bath. You know, we did the same thing when it came to washing dishes for the longest time. You know, but you know, if you remember back in those days, you know, we'd get up and kids would go outdoors, they'd be out on the go all day. You'd have to figure out how to get them to come home. Not, how do I get them off the chair? You know, it's a whole different world. But it's one we have control over our own world. Okay, it's just that simple. And this is what we are aiming at doing here. Yes, I'm still going to cover many of the other topics we've dealt with, as in different alien races, what's going on out there in the world. Their homes are the same the same priorities. You still have to have a home where you're comfortable. Even the strictest military, the people in their barracks have to have a place that they can unwind. if you don't have a place to relax, if you don't have a home to go to, I will tell you, you're going to run into troubles because the stress will build. Now remember, home is, they say home is where the heart is. This doesn't always mean, I knew a leash one day, we were gaming, and the leash was very unhappy because somebody had stolen her heart. It was an interesting campaign, but totally sideways. The fact of the matter is, if you don't have a place to wind down and just put your feet up, do what you will, you run into problems. There is no doubt there at all. Will, I'm not going to, for obvious reasons, now, mind you, it doesn't bother me as much now. Some, just like in the States, some Canadians are happier than heck he resigned. Some are madder than a wet hen and worried as all get out. Just like in the States, some people like the current president, some people don't. What have we got? Philip goes, the man who was the #1 funder of a little church I used to visit a lot. He would dress in torn jeans and a t-shirt. For a belt, he used an orange twine string. Nice. The clothing is not what makes somebody a good person. Yeah, and that's just it. This is why I tell people. I thought about upgrading my appearance, my dress code. Again, I got looking at it going, this is me. If people are going to listen to me, they're going to listen to me because of what comes out of my mouth, not because of what I'm wearing for a shirt. I got told one day this particular shirt, I think that says Hurley. Used to be a super classified as a supermodel. And people say, oh, you're a fan of hers. I'm like, no, I'm a fan of the price I paid for the shirt. Which was, quite frankly, I think $1.50. I have decided I am going to have the best of the best in my home. Okay. I'm not going to worry about what it looks like out there. I'm going to worry about what it looks like to me and the way that people feel when they come into my home. And rest assured, I got no problems with throwing people out of my home. It's kind of like I got no problem ignoring a phone. But the thing with a home is you set the parameters. You lay out what makes you comfortable. Remember karmic law. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Okay. Set that up in your own home first. Okay. Now, the neat part about it is once you do that and you start treating people exactly the way you desire to be treated, that is when you turn around and find out just who is accepting you as you. No, it doesn't. Although I have got a phone that just on occasion annoys me. I did find out something that is really neat. If you really don't like it and like it ringing, and I've done it to people, I'll take this phone, and it's neat. Amazingly, these funny things, if they get annoying, they've got a button on them. On top of being able to hang it up, you can shut it off. Just turn the ringer off. And amazingly, when you do that, people don't phone you. I've got my answering system set up. I'm done with being invaded by people that want to tell me how my life should be handled. So I just don't answer my phone most of the time. Okay, it does have a problem. This is why I say, if you're trying to get a hold of me, absolutely, sending me a text, dropping me an email, contacting me through the Buy Me a Coffee link is a reasonable way of doing it. Okay, it's just that simple. And yes, I have been notified here. We're under 15 minutes now. The home is where everybody requires it. Whether you are on the street, in a hovel, in an apartment like I'm in, living in a house, living in a mansion, living in a castle, on a starship, you get the idea. Wherever you live, wherever you wind down, that is your home. Okay? And the reality of it is, when you start looking at it, as you accept the fact that you're entitled to be content by your definition, not by everybody else's. Okay? When you take that to heart, what you'll find is that you actually have a much happier life. Stress level collapses, energy level climbs, mental acuity goes through the roof, and your recall becomes incredible. Okay? By the way, I forget who it was that asked, but we were asked earlier about tips for improving memory. Find a connection, something that you can relate to lock that memory to. Like, for instance, if you're trying to recall somebody's name, find something that draws your attention to that. In the stories in the novels I'm writing, most of these characters have a reference where I can look at it and go, yeah, that was inspired by this person. Okay. Now, yes, I change names on occasion, except in one specific case. But I changed the names by like, for instance, one person I used as a character is based on the personality of a waitress I used to know. Phenomenal waitress, beautiful personality. So with that in mind, very important where you're looking at improving your memory, consistently tell yourself that your memory is improving. Okay? Because your memory is perfect. It literally is, I did it. Meaning you got total memory. It's recall that we're having trouble with. Oh, thanks for reminding me there, Operation. The neat part about it is memory is not the biggest problem. Okay. But I will tell you another thing that works like a charm. Now, I don't know if you can get where you are, Operation. Like when you take a look at books, like search and find puzzles. Okay. Search and find puzzles are a good way to improve your pattern recognition. Crosswords work for trivia, but the best puzzle books I've come across are logic puzzles. Ones that get you to think, to work through a complication. And yes, as was suggested some time back, that's one of those neat little books that I am in the process of working on, is an interactive adventure book. These used to be great back in, I think it was in the 90s, they were really at their heyday. But, my mind just doesn't slow down a whole lot. So what we're looking at is you take a look at the home. What is not working well for you? What are you not totally content with? Whatever it is, okay, start adjusting the energy in it. If you find that things aren't totally organized, it's time to reduce. Give you an idea. Okay. These drawers over here. Now, this one in particular used to be full all the way to the top of the drawer with pens. Okay. I've got it down to a handful of pens here. The rest are into another storage area. But remove the clutter. Your home will feel so much better. And like I said, don't take my word for it. Okay, if you haven't given it a shot and you're not content with the way your life is going, it's time to make adjustments. And literally speaking, sometimes what it is that you require, sometimes it's imperative that you take the faith of somebody else or a tool somebody else uses and give it a shot just so that you can turn around and find out. Because, people say, well, you just got to ask the right questions. That's great if you know what they are. Chad Smith, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And in answer to the short answer there, Chad, is we are looking at literally the importance of a home for all. Everybody requires a place to wind down. Every single one of you. Doesn't matter what race, what species. That's terrible, Philip. That really is. And Lord knows I actually did that the other day. This particular bank. This particular one here. These 5 drawers. I pulled them out. I pulled it out too far and had to pick the whole thing up. But that's where my thermostat is. So this has become kind of like my own little hidden spot. Keep the thermostat behind that. It's out of the way. Easy to get to. I refer to this little 60 square foot area as my sanctum sanctorum. This is where I relax. This is where I meditate, where I do my work, and where I try and tick off as many people as I can get away with. Okay, without having YouTube ban me. With this in mind, where are we? We are running down right to the wire, aren't we? But think of it. I mean, I do, when we were running the 2-hour run, because I didn't get a lot, there wasn't a lot of interaction. As you guys know, on Spaced Out Radio, we interact completely with the audience. But we've also got a wider array. And yeah, Philip, that's my hidden weather station. That's where I keep I've got the thermostat there in my window here. Rest assured, the thermostat gets turned off before I open the window. There we go. Absolutely. And I've just been informed by LA, and this is one of those neat little things. She keeps an eye on the clock. Otherwise, I get lost. But we are down to the 5 minute. Let me just quickly get that out of my way. Because Friday, we are going to be looking at death, a different perspective. Yep. On Friday, we'll be dealing with death, a different perspective. On Saturday, we move over and we start looking at the arrival of the Moldok. Like I said, we will... That is possible. It depends entirely on what's going on. I will be coming on throughout the week at varying times. Don't know if there's going to be a schedule, but I will be dropping in from time to time. In the meantime, thank you so very much, people, for sharing your time with me tonight. Really appreciate it. I will be back again tomorrow. No, I will be back on Friday to discuss death, a different perspective. Okay. Until then, do take care of yourselves and each other.